Center for Soft Power is a think tank which looks at India's influence outside India in
Oh,
different verticals like spirituality, Sanskrit, yoga,
mm,
Ayurveda. And I was
that's
just mentioning to Andreji that our founders are also from the same Guru Parampara as yours. So we
oh, serious?
yeah, my director and founder, they are disciples of J. Swamiji. And also,
Oh, that's very nice.
she's also a disciple of Swami Chinmayananda.
Chinmayanand, okay, that's very
So it
nice.
is
Yeah,
lovely to connect with you.
yeah. Hope we can do something together.
Okay, you can record the meeting if you want.
Yeah, thank you so
Ah,
much. I'm recording. Thank you. So, how you've suddenly shot into the limelight thanks to Prime Minister's mentioning you in his Man Ki Baat, but your work and your interest in India goes far back, I can see. So, what was the
yes.
first? When
Okay.
was
I
the
was in
first
the
exposure?
in 2003, I think, or 2004. I was looking for some answers to my life, and then I met a yoga teacher in Brazil that happens to be in the same parampara, and he has just got married, and he was in Brazil, and he has no students, so I became his first student, and at the same time, I had the privilege like to have many one-to-one sessions.
Mhm.
Like that, I was studying for some years in Brazil.
He was
After
an
that,
Indian. Sorry, he was an
yes,
Indian.
yes, he was Indian. His name is Santosh. And then after that, I wanted to meet Puja Swamiji, and he was in US by that time. So I left my job for 1 month, did 15 days of seva in exchange for 15 days of course, and I stayed for 1 month in the ashram in Salisbury. After that, I was like very into the culture because there was a connection, maybe past life, something like that. And I started to dedicate myself to mantras, Sanskrit, and everything. And it took around 7 years studying. By the end of that, I decided to do the 3 year course Puri Swamiji was taking in Coimbatore. So let's say 10, more or less 7 years later, I was in Anaikati. That's a small city, thank you, close to Coimbatore. There I stayed for 4 years and a half, and then I came back. Then I started teaching, and as Chinmayananda ji also said, nah, when he went back from Himalaya, said, okay, let's see if it's gonna happen. If it's happened, it happened, you know. And the number of students only grew since I came back. And I have like some, let's say, regular students that are in the Parampara studying, and we meet personally, but also we have these online meetings. That's the reason we are here. And and I have followers that are basically people that just attend some free classes that I put here and there in the internet so that people come to know more about the Vedic tradition. And then the prime minister came to know because the number of followers was very high. Last year we got 150,000 followers, you know, that daily were studying and follow the teachings. So that he came to notice us and give this recognition.
Uh, in this parampara, it is required that you do this 4 year study and the sadhana, and you acquire knowledge. Knowledge is very fundamental for transformation in this tradition. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in some traditions, the experience it's experiential. First, maybe through just practicing yoga. How important do you think is was this 4 year course and the longer years of sadhana for for this tradition to be imbibed within you? Because now you have 1 year courses, you have 6 month Vedanta courses, we have
Mm-hmm.
quick solutions. So
Mhm.
How important it is to immerse ourselves in this tradition before we realize the true path of it.
What I feel is that for a foreigner, unless we have an experience in India with the masters, with the temples, and with the culture, it's very difficult for us to like to grasp the, let's say, the sukshma part of all this knowledge. So for me, it was fundamental. Actually, like after the 3 year course, it was 4 years, but anyway, um, the feeling is that I'm a completely new person, like being born again, something like that. So I think there is no other way. And even like the Sanskrit mantras, they are very much part of the whole thing. We cannot do it without that. Yeah.
What is the primary interest of your followers and students in Vedanta? Do we have to reach a point where we want to know the purpose of life, or we are not happy with
Oh,
our
they
current
start like that.
current life?
They start like that. Yeah, they
Mhm.
want to know the purpose of life, and they want answers. They are very eager for that. So let's say the whole cultural part and like religious part, all this I put it for free in YouTube so that people just like listen, learn, and all that. When they want to join the parampara, then we do like a regular class and we study the Vedic texts, all them. So that's what we are doing. So one part of our job is this online platform. Another part is here we have here an institute in the mountains in Brazil. So people come and stay for different times in retreats and studying also, like we do in India, but Brazilian version.
Mhm. So, have you been able to translate the text into Brazilian
Sure.
language?
We like I just finished the Gita we are publishing, and before that I have done some small prakarana granthas, and soon I will do the Upanishads also, but not with the purpose of let's say studying through a translation, but as a reference for the students that are like in the class and they only have English references, so it's very important for us. Yeah.
Are these texts, would you say they are easily translatable because, of course, there are no proper equivalent terms for many of the words. So how do
It's
you
not
manage that?
it's a big challenge. Actually, I like very much to do this job because of the challenge on it. For example, Gita took me around, I think, 2 years and a half to translate because every expression I wanted to be like very truthful for the original meaning, but at the same time, I did not want to lose the etymology of the words. So sometimes I have to put a note and say why this word is used. It's not the original word, but it's more closer to what the meaning is. For example, one simple example. When they Isha was tushta kama dukha. Now, in the Gita, there is a part where he says that this is your kamadenu. So whatever you ask, Ishwar will give you through prayers. There's a part of the gift. But the wish fulfilling cow, how people used to translate, does not have any meaning in our culture. So we would have a meaning maybe for the Aladdin lamp. People have this. So I would have to make a note and say the wish fulfilling cow is a concept similar to the Aladdin lamp. Whatever you wish, this will come. So everything has to be properly explained. It's a nice job, nice to do. Also.
And I've read that probably the earliest introduction of Vedanta to Brazil was through the Ramakrishna mission and the missionaries who came from that tradition. So, is there a history of Vedanta before Swami Dayanand came to Brazil and uh, or students like you came to India? What is the history of Vedanta in Brazil? Did you know that?
Yes, actually, Chinmayananda was the first one to come. You know, he came in the 70s the first time. He was going to Argentina, and for some purpose of flight delay, he came here, and the devotees organized the lecture. In this lecture, my teacher, one of my teachers, Gloria G, she uh, she was there on her 20s, and she was like fascinated by all this knowledge and everything. After that, Chinmayananda did not came to Brazil again. He went to Argentina and some other places, but Gloria went back to Rishikesh to meet him. And then there, she did the 3-year course. She did actually 2 to 3 year courses. And then she came back to Brazil, and she's teaching here for more than 30 years. This gave us a base, uh, initial base, so that people knows what is Vedanta about, what is the purpose of yoga, and all that. Not in a Western approach, but on more like authentic Eastern approach. And after that, we have so many other people, but to Brazil, nobody has come. But like Vivekananda in US and some different masters came, and so the name of yoga became popular, but not Vedanta as such. And then it was maybe around 6 years ago where we did a course on Vedanta. That was like the maximum that we were able. We reached more than 6 million people, I think. And then suddenly everything changed. At least the world of yoga here knows what Vedanta is. Some people will agree, some people disagree, say you are nuts. So, okay, and that's how it is. Slowly growing.
So, is there a connection between Indian culture and ancient Brazilian culture in terms of relatables between the people? Would you say that some of the
But
philosophies?
this is the subject that I'm working now, because after coming back to Brazil, and having studied so much of this ancient culture, I had a need to connect to my ancestral field. And actually, I have two grandparents that are native Indians. That's why I don't have beer or anything like that. And it was very interesting because I'm talking to some spiritual leaders, and whatever they tell is the same thing. They don't have a method or a tradition alive, but some people have the knowledge, and it's like the same base, the same values, the same idea of karma yoga, Ishvara Pranidhana. It is there in our spiritual legacy. So one of my projects for the next years is to like revive the spiritual legacy of Brazil and of America, let's say, because the native North Americans are also very like authentic people. These Lakota people and all that. So I'm
Can
making.
you give us some concrete 2, 3 examples of where you find a lot of similarity?
Sure. Okay. Let's think for example on the daily life of a native Indian. So the first thing they would do is to have a drink on the river, exactly how we would do in Ganga. Before entering, they turn it towards the sun, and they offer the water, and as same as we would do, and asking for the blessing, and how I say, invoking the sacredness of the river, before they enter into the bath. You know? Also, they have a lot of reverence for their ancestors, and they don't see themselves separated from their grandparents and all that. That in the Western philosophy, Western way of thinking, you don't have that. Everything in the life of a native Indian is a prayer. To cook is a prayer. To talk to somebody is a prayer. And actually, when I went to meet this Indian, he said a sentence that is exactly the same as Atiti Devo Bhava. I just arrived there, and then he said, "Oh, you came without notice. You treated as God." Then he gave me a gift and this and that. So it's very connected. But I want to dive into that because I don't have much knowledge about our own spiritual legacy, to meet the masters and know what they have, because I don't think they have texts. It was more a way of life, maybe what was originally in India before the Western, let's say, uh, change of the way of life. It's more a way of life than the structure of texts. So I think there is a lot to connect, because if we want to bring the Indian philosophy to Brazil and help people, they need to relate to their own culture. you know. And if there is a similarity between the native Indians and the, let's say, Indian Indians, then you can make the connection and say these are the teachings that are the same teachings that we had here before, but it's not available right now. This would be very nice to do, you know. So that's my aim for the next year, let's say. But don't tell anybody. Nobody knows.
Sure. So, how is your day-to-day life? You are an engineer, and you are also I think a stock market expert. How does your day? You say you're a very different person now. So how does, in a day-to-day practical sense, how does it change your lifestyle? I mean, from morning to evening, what are the things that you do differently?
Yeah. And let me just tell you one thing. Please don't share this recording with anybody, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Because we have to talk about the software soon because we don't have much time. But I'm just sharing with you of
Sure.
open heartedness, okay?
Sure, sure, of course.
So, so my daily life has changed completely since when I started studying in Brazil. So I was very much committed to everything inside a normal life in the West. And slowly I introduced the yoga, then the Vedanta classes, then later on we let's say I learned how to do a puja, and then I was practicing mantras and japa and all that. And then after I went to India, I was completely Indian. Even like if I walk in the street with a dhoti, nobody would know if I'm a Brazilian or an, you know. So when I came back, I just adapted for our reality here. So I did a small shrine in my home. Then I have a place where the students can come and study, and I do my own sadhanas. And then for example, today is Vivekananda Jayanti. We are going to celebrate. So we have introduced some things from Indian culture to our culture, and that's how we've been doing. You know.
And what are your very memories which in India that you will cherish, that that you will always remember from your experiences in India, the places you visited? And I saw some lovely pictures
Yeah.
on.
Well, uh, I would tell that the the authenticity and the truthness of the Indian people, you know, in their spirituality is something that it always marked me. So it's not an event in itself, but it's like the smile, the 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 connection with the masters. So with the Swamiji, it's so beautiful, like to be there with him and to understand how to love in a different way, you know, student disciple connection. This was something like very unique and new for me because we don't have this in the West, you know. In the West, when we have this situation between a teacher and a student, they enter in a certain fantasy of a guru and something crazy, you know. When it's something very normal and natural, you know, and to see all these things happening in a beautiful way and people studying in the devotion, the temples, this is what is in my heart, you know, all the time. So, yeah.
As communication has increased and world
Wait,
has
wait, wait, wait. Sorry. We have to talk about the software because I only have 10 minutes, although we are not going to be able to do it.
yeah.
Okay? Then we can, next meeting, we can, we can ask more
Sure,
questions.
sure, sure.
Sure?
So,
Okay.
as the world has grown closer, but we still, the world is also very fractured, and we see the difference between not just from between Indians and Brazilians, but between Indian to Indian. Although we are communicating more, we have more technology, we have everything is enabling better communication, but humans are also moving away from each other. How can Vedanta help to solve this? Where we are talking about everyone being essentially from the same Brahman and having the same essence. So, how can Vedanta help in today's world crisis?
Uh, let's do that question next meeting because I don't have much time and we really need to know about this software that you are offering so that we can Uh, just 1 second. 1 minute.
Alô? Alô?
Sorry, I had to attend.
No problem. I think you have a time issue.
Yeah, our time is very like we have
Busy.
so many. Yeah,
No problem.
but
I just want.
you can ask your question. We have time.
Okay. I was talking about how, although communication is increasing, I'm able to speak to you across time zones, across countries, but even then, human relations are getting more fragmented. More clashes are happening. How can Vedanta help in this world crisis?
See, um, one interesting thing when we talk about Brazil, people have this idea of how I say. Tio, eu acho que se você desligar o seu microfone, vai, não vai dar, eu acho que está dando retorno. Ah. So when we talk about Brazil, people have this interesting idea that Brazil is a place of dance, of samba, of music, and all that. But this also reveals, underneath very strong spirituality, like the gypsies around the world. For one side, they are seen as maybe uh, just travelers, but they have so much culture, so much dance and art and everything, and this is actually a symptom of a very strong spirituality. So we have some places like Brazil and other places around the world where there is a, let's say, inborn spiritual legacy, just like imminent to be invoked. And what we should do as let's say one whole family, like Vasudeva Kutumbakam, as the world as one whole family, is to have everybody to invoke their own spiritual legacy. Our connections with our grandfathers, with devatas, with the natural forces and everything that is available, so that we can be the best version of ourselves, and live in the world that we would like to live. And this cannot be done by a foreign culture. This is something that has to be done inside, and but we can take help. So I see that the Vedic culture is in a place where they can help other countries and other cultures to invoke their own ancestrality, their own spirituality.
You had asked about the soft power sector. So soft power is essentially the softer aspects of a country, like art,
Oh,
yoga,
okay.
Ayurveda. Whereas hard power is military, defense, economics.
Ah,
That
okay,
is
okay, I
hard
understand. So
power.
it's
Yeah.
like
So
the
yeah.
sukshma part,
Yes.
sukshma shakti. Okay.
Yes. Sukshma Shakti.
Then,
So how can India, India has very strong Sukshma Shakti, but people
mhm,
don't acknowledge, that in ratings and rankings, India does not necessarily rank very high because of other reasons, because of maybe poverty or health. We don't rank very high in those aspects. So how can a
mhm,
soft power help to improve our day-to-day standard of living? Is that something that, as you see in Brazil, where spirituality and Vedanta and yoga can improve the quality of life, economic well-being? It has a direct impact which is not
mhm.
necessarily acknowledged. People think they are two different compartments. One
Yeah, yeah,
side is spirituality, one side is material
yeah.
well-being.
It's very difficult to understand how spirituality can help in a daily life and how it can be absorbed into a different culture, because the culture, of course, is different. The values, the concepts, what the society understands to be spirituality is different. So I would say that there are two big obstacles. The first obstacle is that people in the West, they have a very they are very blocked to understand that there are two different things. One is the person, and the other is the teacher. So teacher is a role. I'm here using this cloth, and I'm talking to you, and I'm let's say expressing myself as a teacher. But once I step out of this room and I'm with my wife and my daughter, I'm just a father. I'm just Jonas, a normal Brazilian guy, you know. So this is very difficult. People used to like to criticize the teachers, telling that they are just normal people. But actually, this is the obvious thing. We are just normal people teaching, and that's the beauty of it. It's not that we want to become saints or anything like that. No, we're just normal people and teaching about something deep and profound. And when this is open in the mind, then I'm able to hear another person just like me. And this is like what Vedanta needs, so that it can enter our heart. Because if we see the teacher as somebody, let's say, superior to me, from another culture or race or whatever we can imagine, then it's not something that is really available for me. I would say he's happy because he's different than me. I want to see, a mother with children and working at home, telling that life is happiness, because there is this difference in the subconscious. So we need to be able to reconcile inside of us the idea that the let's say there is not a guru. There are normal people giving very safe teachings. So for the West, this has to be really absorbed. And the second thing is an understanding that what is being taught, by the ancient rishis and the masters and everything, uh, is not something that we can learn in maybe 6 months, 1 year. It's something that took them one lifetime to do it. So in the martial arts field, where uh, I also am part of it, nobody thinks that they are going to like practice yoga or karate for 1 year and become a karate master.
Yeah.
But in the West, they have these fancy ideas that 1 year I become a yoga teacher, a Vedanta teacher, a Sanskrit teacher. And this is not a spiritual legacy, this is a spiritual fantasy. If we see in India, there are some people that dedicate their whole lives just for Sanskrit. And it's almost like a lack of respect, to be able to to not acknowledge the effort that these people have done. So understanding the path as something like long and that has to be built upon, is very important for us, so that we stop to have this expectation of a quick answer, a magical mantra, a diksha that will change the life, because that's not about what spirituality.
And is there a clash between the Shastras and modernity? Some of the issues in India, we find that some is there a necessity to update some of our traditions so that it is suited to the modern situation? Um, because sometimes something which may have been necessary in an earlier time is not very easily adaptable now in terms of lifestyle or certain
Yeah,
things
yeah,
which
yeah.
so
That's true. This is much more of understanding the difference between a traditional teaching and a, let's say, conservative teaching. There is an orthodox teaching also. That's not the point. Orthodox means I believe that what the way
they
it was being
was
taught
taught as
before is
yeah.
the correct way. The conservative will say that the way that is happening now is the correct way. We should not change it. And let's say the traditional is somebody that uh, is looking to the essence of things and understanding that the truth has to be adapted to each situation and culture. So seeing that as the traditional way of things, the Shastra has no conflict with the modern life. But of course, we have to understand the moment the society is living, the culture, the pain, whatever is needed to be said to people and to be acknowledged has to be said also on the field of spirituality. And this is a big challenge for everyone, for me, for everyone, because we don't know everything. We don't know about everything that people is going on. And we are like just trying our best to acknowledge whatever people are.
And
And
people are also
let's,
questioning more. Earlier, if the guru said something, we accepted and we did not
yeah,
question why. But now
yeah.
people want to know, question everything.
And questioning is not something bad.
Mm.
It's part of this era, no? This yuga, let's say, this moment we are going. So let people question, and because answers are there, so it's a different way of approaching,
Engagement.
of teaching. I don't see if there is respect, love, it will flow. The knowledge will flow.
Thank you so much. I won't take up more of your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And can you